Well, Shaka, let's take a look then at the past 10 years and the history of the program from those who were there and see how it all got started.
Hello, I am Shaka Sali. Growing up in that...
Straight Talk is a show that tries to connect with the ordinary people back in Africa.
We're looking for the story in Africa that week.
And held a mock election.
Straight Talk Africa began in the year 2000. It was the Africa Division's first television program.
We were a core group of 3 or 4 of us.
Thank you.
Roll, that's been a tragedy.
It took a lot to put the show together. The cameraman, the studio people, other show producers, the people who ran the time clocks, the people who did the chyrons, the graphics.
We were in Studio 18. It was a radio studio with television cameras added. It was marrying two related but not identical concepts. And the result was Straight Talk Africa.
Hello, welcome to Straight Talk Africa, live from the Voice of America studios here in Washington. Initially, of course, we were getting into what you would say is uncharted territory. We didn't know, for example, the audience would react or respond to what we were trying to do.
We didn't have much clout because people didn't know who we were. So to try and get influential guests was very difficult at the time. It worked because Shaka was such a good host and he knew so many people.
Also urged them.
Before hosting the show, I had done a lot of work on the continent. I was reasonably well informed as far as the history, the culture, the politics, the economics of the continent. Political independence, which is back in 1957.
As we expanded our storylines and our realms, the show grew.
What do you expect out of this?
When I was back in Uganda, I watched the very first show. I was like, you know what, this is something that Africans have been looking forward to.
What about your critics, Mr. President, who will disagree with you and say your policies simply have not delivered the economic goods?
Because at the time, there were a couple talk shows, but there was nothing that was really dedicated to talking about the issues.
Issues that affect people on a daily basis. To vote for independence, we're talking about, for example, the democratization process, the struggle for human rights. Since 2005, we have been assured that there is going to be an election. No election. A lot of things, frankly, that, people rarely have an opportunity to be able to have a dialogue or to have a conversation.
Welcome back. Over the past decade, Shaka, you have hosted more than 500 shows and sat down with more than 1,000 guests, including more than 50 heads of states or presidents from around the continent.
Who recommended it to you?
I'm working on it.
Shaka has guests on that are current, they're topical.
Shaka, thank you very much. It's also my great pleasure to be with you.
Shaka is very good at getting good guests. Out of 53 countries on the continent, he has probably interviewed half of the presidents.
Mr. President, thank you very, very much for being with us. When President Barack Obama was visiting, Sub-Saharan Africa for the first time, and the honor went to Ghana, I had a live one-on-one interview with President John Atta Mills. Barack Hussein Obama also ran on the theme for change. I've interviewed Daniel Arap Moi, who used to be the Kenyan president. You know that what you just did with Raila Odinga is reminiscent of what happened back in 1963. I have interviewed Kenyan President Mwai Kibaki, the Golden Key, President Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe, the current president of the DRC, Joseph Kabila.
Proceedings away from
Erin Sarif, the first democratically elected female president on the African continent, and so many others, really. By the time I get in the studio, I make sure that I do my homework. I do the research that is needed so that I have a comprehensive knowledge, a comprehensive sense of what is really going on and what I am going to share with the audience. Kenya held a peaceful referendum which initiated. Before the show begins, I interact with my guests and I tell them that this show really belongs to them. As far as I'm concerned, they are the experts. They have an opportunity to put their best foot forward.
One of the panelists, actually, and...
How did you get in there? You were not specifically invited.
When I came here the first time, I kind of, thought I did my homework well, and there was nothing out of that we discussed.
He has been honored by the National Endowment.
When you watch his show, he constantly challenges people. Let's say if he's talking to a politician and maybe a politician is trying to pander his way. No, he figures out a way of bringing this politician back to the talking points.
There was no single thatched house, by the way, in Rwanda under Habyarimana.
Yes, so the whole...
Well, Shaka, there seems to be a time throughout each email that we have received, and it's what we here at the Voice of America have deemed Shakaisms.
Straight Talk Africa. The call-in aspect of the show is great because it gives people in Africa a chance to call in and voice their opinion.
202-619-3111.
We get more and more calls every week.
People calling in from Paris. We had someone calling from Australia. You know, people were all over the world were listening.
Good evening, Mulema. We'll open the...
I'm making them accountable.
When they call, they know that they are connecting directly with Shaka.
This is Mulegwa Zihindula from the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Yes, please. I'm hearing you. Go ahead. I'm profoundly honored and exceedingly humbled to have the opportunity to host you on Straight Talk Africa. Get better, not better.
Shaka-isms are these expressions that Shaka Sali is notorious for. In every show, he has a handful of things that he says.
I have to go for a break. There's no democracy in Studio 51. The man with the clinic. The good doctor.
Shaka has several Shaka-isms.
And I say this from the deepest, better part of the bottom of my heart and soul. I am profoundly honored and exceedingly humbled for your compliments, sir. Others come and say, profoundly honored. And then, of course, I would say, exceedingly humbled.
Traveling with Shaka Sali in Africa is like traveling with a rock star.
The door's opening, he walks in, and there are scores of people.
It's impossible for people to understand how big and how popular Shaka is in Africa.
What specific mechanisms have you put in place to curb corruption?
10 years has gone by very fast. When I look at what has made the program so popular then and now, it is that one thing, Shaka Sali.
I think it speaks to the professionalism of the hosts, the producers, the kind of research that is done behind the scenes.
Did you want me to put Africa Crisis?
The quality of packages that we produce speaks to why this show has been able to last for the last 10 years.
10 years in television is a long time.
The first 10 years really got us established, and we're just going to fly from there.
And please remember to keep the African hope alive.